A good morning to all of us, and on a chilly Sunday, and happy to be here. Really happy to be here with us on this Bible study session. Now, whenever I say that I want us to take it easy, it ends up becoming one of those not exactly easy conversations. I was thinking about the prodigal son. If we can just look at the prodigal son again with a bit of a tooth comb and see what we can draw from the prodigal son. You know, there's something the Englishmen call, when you form an opinion over something because of the way that thing has been previously either expressed or exposited, framed, or put out there. Okay, so we already have a way of thinking when it comes to the prodigal son story, and some of the quick, low-hanging fruits, quick take-homes, is that God is very loving, because the father of this young man, embraced the young man when he came back. Another take-home is the prodigal son was very riotous, that he wasted money. So those early days, I remember when I got saved, and probably even before, the bulk of the sermons which came, from that particular text majored very heavily on, it sounds even more interesting when you say it in Swahili, alijiingiza kwa anasa za dunia. And that is true, of course. The prodigal son, wasted his monies and his resources in riotous living. But let's see if we can pick some positives, okay? So that's where I'm going with all this. Now, that story is found in Luke, the Gospel according to St. Luke, chapter 15. You can start from verse 11, and I think I'll do that very quickly. Then he said, a certain man had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. So he divided to them his livelihood. Okay. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. Okay. This one uses a very nice English word. Some say riotous living. But when he had spent all, there arose a severe famine in that land, and he began to be in want. Then he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him to his fields to feed swine. And he would gladly have filled his stomach with the pods that the swine ate, and no one gave him anything. Okay, verse 17. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was still a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion, ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, rather, bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet, and bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry, for this my son was dead and is alive again, and he lost. He was lost. Now he is found. And they began to be merry. And you know that the story that comes out is the younger son who wasn't exactly happy. But again, um, so we have the story of of this young man who he's never cast in good light. Okay, and I've had enough sermons, using him as the analogy, as the example. Um, there's very little positives that people take from this youngster. So, and because it's a Bible study, we can look at areas, we can look at segments, we can look at different approaches that will give us a more fuller story. Because I think that's the whole essence of having a Bible study. A Bible study essentially should not be saying what everybody else says. It's trying to see certain nuances of things which are implied, that are hidden from the naked eye, to use the term loosely, and but are necessary for you to be able to have a more fuller story. So my job today, and our job today, is to relook at this thing again. Like when you watch some of these American documentaries, especially on issues to do with crime. So you come across, let's say, a crime that was committed, and then the investigators came in and they did their best, and they interviewed all the witnesses they thought were relevant to the case, and they went to all the places, they checked out all the things that needed to be checked out, but then the case, as they normally put it, went cold. There were no leads, nothing. So normally, like I mentioned earlier, the case goes cold. They kind of come to a place of standstill, or they kind of hit a brick wall, and you can't move, and they can't move. So there are persons who later on, who are given the assignment to look again at those cold cases. And they normally say that they are fresh pair of eyes, and that's a beauty. And when I think about even Bible and the fact that we have got so many ministers, servants of God who are doing what I'm doing here, it's like somebody coming in after the fact and providing a fresh pair of eyesight. Okay, fresh pair of eyes. There are things they may see that another person may not see, for obvious reasons. That probably they are skilled differently. They have a certain advantage, both as a person or maybe or in training. And as time moves on, sometimes we even ourselves, not necessarily even somebody else coming in, if we look at the same thing again and again, we start seeing things which we never saw. Anyway, this is my way of saying that sometimes we look at a story like the one which I just read for you right now, the story of the prodigal son, and on top of our minds, we know, we're talking about the love of the Father. Compassion. The young man went, this young man was such a terrible youngster. He went and wasted his livelihood, in riotous living, and we kind of, and it is true. Those things actually did happen. But there are other things that are hidden. And the word of God it's very, what's the word in good English? It's very compressed. There's so much you can pick from God's word if you just take time and remove some of the biases and remove some of the I think I'll stay with biases as I look for another one. If we can remove the prejudice, and we've already judged it before, that this is what it means, and be a little bit more objective, there are certain things you can pick which will give you, again, like I mentioned earlier, a more fuller story. So let's get to the issue proper. So we have a story here, true or not, it's a fantastic story and relatable, where a father has two sons. And we are told from what we read earlier, verse 12 says, the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. So the father divided to them. And I believe this is true in any other translation you're using. The word is them, not to him. Let's look at it this way. And especially with the benefit of knowing how the firstborn reacted when the younger son of or his brother came back home and his father received him very well. There's something about this youngster, this young man who was second-born, that is commendable. He actually understood that it was time for him to begin, let's use the word they use a lot in English, for him to step out into the real world. That can't be so bad. Because let's assume, for argument's sake, that all these shenanigans he did later lasted 10 years, because we are not told. We can only speculate. So let's say it even lasted 20 years. We don't know how long it took for him to waste, the monies. So he is coming back. If he left at age 20, he's coming back at age 40. He finds his elder brother in the same spot he left him in terms of maturity, responsibility. And maturity comes by acceptance of responsibility. He finds him in the same place, same spot. Let's give it to him that he is daring. Let's give it to him that they use the term taking the bull by the horn. Let's give it to him that he initiated a process. He started something. He didn't have all the wherewithals to survive the real world, as we now know. But he had the guts and he had the drive to get something going. And that can be really bad. In any case, if this was wrong, then the father, who had the latitude of rejecting his offer, did not reject the offer. I mean, when I mean offer, reject the request. I think that's a more better way put. So the father would have said, "Oh, look, I mean, you're young, you're not there yet." The father didn't seem to have a problem not only dividing or handing over some inheritance to him, he actually divided to them. It was about time this happened. It's not all bad. And let me just put it this way. Even as we begrudge the youngster for all the things he did, as we berate him, as we verbally punish him for bringing the anguish, the trouble he brought to the family, let's give it to him that he was innovative, he was creative, he had initiative, he had drive, he had passion. And that's a good place to start as any. If you get my drift, that's a good place to start. I can't remember who said this, but then again, it has been used so many times, it kind of lost, that original, who to apportion the credit. That without experiments, there are no experiences. Just think about it. There has to be an experiment. And, you all know, any person who ever walked into a laboratory, you did something, while there, experiments can turn out, can go either way, can go this or that, can go east or west, can turn out good, positive, or negative. And it is true with life. So again, I'm coming back to the father who did not, lash out at the boy and say, how dare you think like that? No. He said, it's about time I gave you, both of you, what belongs to you. initiative is good. But initiative, so let me say this. So the other day I was watching, I mean, as you know, I am an avid football fan. So I watched football yesterday till very late. You know, round of 16, UEFA 2020. It was supposed to happen last year. It's happening this year. And yesterday's was a feast. If you love football, yesterday was a festival of talent, passion, and everything that football brings on the table. But there was another match, I forget the particular one, where the announcer was saying something very interesting. He said, look, this team has a lot of heart, and you could tell. I mean, those guys ran the whole field, and you could tell they were so patriotic. Even when the national anthem was playing, some of them were crying, and it was a very passionate team. I forget the particular country. But then he said something interesting. He said, but at the end of the day, you have to play the game. There's a particular way the game is played. You have to defend in a particular way. You have to attack in a particular way. You have to hold the ball in a particular way. You have to do, you still, at the end of the day, you have to play football. I mean, passion, drive, zeal, zest, oomph, whatever you want to call it. You still have to play the game. You still have to hold the ball. You still have to have strategy. You have to pass correctly. You have to have a proper blend and a mix so that you can be able to achieve the results. And that is what I see with this, our case study today. Why are we commending for drive and passion and motivation and zeal and assembling and rallying and organizing resources and being able to emotionally push and initiate that process? He steps out with very little, if no understanding of the real world. Okay? You, again, like I said, you still have to play the game called life. And this is what we have always said in different other ways, that vision is the point at which we initiate or we start a process, whatever process. It can be a marriage, it can be a business. It starts with vision. But we need direction. We need direction. Direction is another word for knowledge. No? So there's a story told, and I had my brother-in-law not too long ago give the story, but I've heard it before many other times, of a pilot communicating with his with the passengers, and he says, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I'm afraid I have some bad news, but I also have some good news. So it's a bag of mixed fortunes. And he says, I'll start with the good news, and that is we are moving very well. We are making very good time. The speed is excellent. When I look at my gauges here, we are doing good time. The bad news is the compass has failed, and so I don't know where we are going. It's a very interesting way of looking at it, that you can be going somewhere you don't know very fast. You can be going somewhere you don't know, but going there very fast. Those of you who remember one time, and I'm looking to see if Kilosh is here, so that when I gossip Kilosh, he doesn't have to, scold me. He's not in, so yeah, that is nice. So Kilosh was helping us one time. We had we had a retreat, some place in Naivasha. Some of the men remember, and we went to some place, for some very nice serene place, nice water, very beautiful, a very, very well manicured area. And I think after we did a couple of things, he was showing us a couple of activities we can do so that we can be able to make good stretches, stuff like that, just physical training. And as we're doing it, some of us, of course, we are not, that's not our line, and he kept on using this terminology, and he was saying, stop perfecting the wrong thing, because some of us will be doing something which is not like he had instructed us to do, but then we're doing it very well. And he was saying, stop affecting the wrong thing. You know, the young man, while we give it to him that he is passionate, he's driven, he is motivated, and all of that, he just lacks the wherewithal, the skill set to go out and do life. And I think that's a very good place to even just pause for a minute, just take a minute and say, how many times do we imagine that all we need is motivation? And this could be the reason. Okay, let me be more frank. This is the reason. I'm not exactly one of the most, I don't get too excited about motivational books. I used to, I'll be honest with you, and that's many years ago. I like motivation if it has to come. Let it be a chapter or two, but let me have another 8 chapters of providing me with a skill set. Okay, I'll even go one better. I've been in the church for a long time. And I can deduce, I can surmise, I can say without batting an eye that the bulk of our preaching today can be categorized as motivation. Motivation is good, but I tell you, it is less than 10% of what you need to succeed. Clearly, from this story. Clearly. Okay? Success is, and especially when we talk about success in respect to actualizing, bringing about something which was not in existence before, there has to be the presence of all ingredients. I think that's what comes to my mind quickly. You can't have a product. So I was having some coffee. I'm done now. But there has to be the product of, there has to be the presence of all ingredients in the proper measures have to be in place for you to have a product. It looks easy, but it is true. Okay? That's the truth. I like how the Bible puts it. All things work together for good. All things work together. They work together. If I want a cake, I mean, I can as well take the flour and eat it. I mean, you see how far I'm going to go with that. And then I can take the margarine and I can take it and other things. You know, it won't make a cake. It is good when it is blended together in the correct way. And that is the kind of balance and the kind of delicate blend that we need to survive, not just to survive, to thrive and be successful. And the young man missed it. He imagined that all he needed was drive, gusto, strength. Some people don't like me saying this, but it is the truth. And I say this again as an avid, very big follower of football. I've watched a lot of Arabistas, our team, I know we are recording, play. And, you know, at the back of your mind, patriotic as you are, something within you tells you we are not there yet. It doesn't matter who comes and motivates us. It doesn't matter if they call the best I don't know who is the best motivational speaker these days. It doesn't matter who motivates you how. There's still some skills that need to be in place. A lot of our people start football when they are slightly older. And for that reason, it takes a bit of time to catch, you know, but by the time they're catching it, maybe they're on their way out, they're on the twilight of their career. But long story short, and I was giving the example earlier of why I'm not exactly a big fan of motivational books, is because motivating a person is just giving them a lot of zeal, gusto, you know, drive, and they push and they move, and then they realize that what works must have a particular. Do you remember early when COVID came into the scene? And I think it must have been the early days and maybe second, third sermon we were recording. And I was saying, hope is not a strategy for fighting COVID. We can't fight COVID with hope. You know, It doesn't happen like that. There has to be something more tangible and something more realistic that you can work with. Anyway, I believe at the point. So the prodigal son lacks the wherewithal on how to handle life. Let me encourage all of us, please, 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 please. Let's master our subject before our subject masters us. Let's master our subject. Let's be good in what you're good at. Okay? To give us an edge. Okay? So, we know, and this one I will not go into details. He went out there and messed up. He went to a far country. If I was an evangelist, I can preach on far country. Don't go so far. I can already see how that is going to turn out. Trust you, mate, it's going to be a big blessing. Don't go to a far country. Come back home. Stay near the Father. And there he wasted his possession with prodigal living. So we also know that he spent all while he was there, and there arose a severe famine in that land, and he began to be in want. Let's put it this way, and especially for those of us who are dealing with money as a resource. There is no big money and there's no little money. And this is what I mean by that. Big money, loads and loads of money, and we have seen it around us, people who we know. I mean, it doesn't take a lot for it to dwindle. There has to be a way in which money can be, what produced? No. Money can translate to more money. Okay? And that means certain skill sets have to kick in. So we have to know how much do we pay ourselves, because we have to pay ourselves for motivational purposes, if not for anything else. Okay? How much do we pay ourselves? So people have given figures here and there. Some say 30%, some say that's what you need to do for paying yourselves and people who you're working, because you also need to motivate your workers if you have people who are working for you. So you have to pay them. How much do you plow back into the business? Okay? And I'll let you to decide depending on the information that is out there. But all these categories have to be satiated. So how much do we pay ourselves? Because we need to enjoy what we're doing. The fruits of what you're working so hard for. How much should go to training? New things are coming up. How do we keep up with the trends? How do we bring in experts who are going to tell us, look, guys, if you stick in that trajectory for the next 10 years, you'll be out of business. Okay? How much do we spend? I was looking at some figures for companies like Safaricom and others. I mean, and it's amazing. It's a lot of money just to bring in, critical thinkers and the people who can do a lot of projections. They can look far ahead and say, where are the markets going to? What would be the challenges? I mean, can you imagine when we started out with our phones? All we could do with our phones, and the biggest honor of these telecommunication companies, was calling and messaging, text messaging. Today it is data. It's data, And so they began introducing us very slowly to smartphones and saying, hey, look, this is the future. And then, of course, now you have a smartphone. Okay, move in this other direction. And the people do. I have seen companies, and I'm sure you know companies, who fought each other. Say two companies, they went at each other's necks, each other's jugular, and they fought each other. They almost kind of, ground themselves to a halt or to a grind, halt. And then they came together. Enemies, as you can imagine, they came together because they realized that us competing on pricing so that we can outsmart or outdo each other is going to destroy both of us. So why don't we make a monopoly by just coming together and use your skills on marketing, because you look like you're very good, in sales and promotion and marketing and all of you. And we have a better product. We can continue refining, tweaking, advancing the product. And then when they bring those companies, some of them at that particular time were each making profit. Some of them were making profit. But then when they projected, they realized the kind of vicious competition that we have with each other will bring us to a standstill. Okay, that's not a good one, but will bring us to a place of utmost complete, destruction. So let's create a monopoly, and you've seen these things happen many times. And so the skill set that is required to do life. My encouragement for all of us, even as we begin to close on this issue, is that every one of us will treasure knowledge. I don't know how to put this in a way that can, you almost wish you had a more plethora of grammar to reinforce, to buttress, to strengthen, to emphasize what I'm trying to say. But we really are not going to have, it's not magical. Remove magical thinking. Life is lived on a platform of sense, common sense approach. So let's jump the rather obvious things. Yeah, you went out there, messed up, wasted money, got finished. You've seen people with little money that keeps growing because they understand I need to save this, I need to pay myself this, I need to use this for. Let me give a very good example, and some of you may not be too happy, with this, but it is the truth. Let me tell you something. You will never finish, or you will never, when I mean finish, that's almost direct translation, but you will never fully satiate and completely eradicate financial needs of your family, and especially your extended family. You'll never eradicate it. Okay? If you go out on I am here to help my folks, let me tell you the truth. And this doesn't sound good and this doesn't sound right, but I will say it all the same because none of us here is mentor. When we settle down emotionally, the emotions are calmed down, you will realize I'm telling you the truth. You have to be very clear, wise, and circumspect. I'm going to chuck this much and I'm going to help my folks, maybe my family, my parents. Because the truth is, you can never eradicate problems. You can never eradicate financial problems. There has to be a place you draw a line on the sand, and say, no. Because I've seen people who say, I want to eradicate this thing. If today we are dealing with a disease issue, a problem issue, tomorrow we are dealing, let's build some the house, or no, they need a car, or now they need a business, then they need, and then you keep, and when you're done with one, then another person, just decide that at the end of the day, I will help, but I will also make these other persons know they have a responsibility of also staying above the waters by themselves. Most people, sad, who are assisted in that manner, sorry to say, they become entitled. And not just become entitled, they kind of forget that people have paid a huge price to get those resources. Some even abuse, those privileges. Okay? There has to be, let me put it this way. And again, this one sounds, we have gone through a season the last 20 or so years, okay, from 90s, mid 90s, where every time we go to church, and I put myself as a church leader there is a project. Let me put it this way. If we start looking for projects, trust you me, you'll never do a thing in your life. It's the truth. When we do a church, we want to do, and of course we want to do a proper church. Then we want to do a hall for the youth, and it's okay. Then we want to buy some utensils for the women group. Then we want to do some flats so that you can get so caught up in this vicious fundraising thing. And there are people from the moment they start, then before long, you want to open a new branch somewhere and then start the process again. Now, it looks like if we're serving God, a lot of people do that heartily, sincerely, at the expense of everything else that is pending. their own health, their own family, their own businesses, and the list goes on. There has to be circumspection. There has to be an element of prudence. There has to be caution. We have to be wary that all these balls, they are ours. Okay, if I can't direct translate it. All these things, they belong to us. These are our children. They also need to go to school. We also need to refresh ourselves. We also need to reinvigorate ourselves. We need to kind of grow ourselves in our professional, our intellectual, areas of, and also church is ours. There has to be a balance, because trust you me, you can do this till you're gray and aging and you've never done anything else. Just my thinking. Just think about it. Just my thinking. And even us leaders have to be very cautious. It's not a must to do everything at one go, one swipe. Okay, buy land, build, after building, after we do that hall, then do another building for this, then we can stagger them. And we can give people little intermittent spaces for breathing. We have to, because they've got more than just us church leaders and our visions and our goals. Okay, some of those things are not, in my view, even necessary. Okay, but I don't want to go there. But it's a truth. It's a truth. It is the truth. We have invested on brick and mortar. Now we are talking to each other through, this medium. I mean, but we've invested massively on. Okay, you almost wish we invested much more on knowledge-based, skill sets. Just a knowledge-based skill set, because it will keep us afloat. So the young man does all that he does. Let me tell you another thing which I like about the young man, and that is he came to his senses. Okay? He has what you call introspection, and I like that. He has something you call, there's some words I'm forgetting which would really paint the picture well. This young man, he ruminates about his life. He sits somewhere and he says, okay, emotions aside, mistakes aside, what I'm dealing with here is a reality of inevitable death through starvation. And nothing can be worse, by the way. Anybody will tell you, nothing can be worse than death through starvation. It's slow, painful, and very painful, very brutal. And the young man simply says, no, if I have to go, I'm not going to go this way. And I think we have to get to a place whereby we even look at our own realities, and especially those realities we have pushed ourselves into that are discomforting, painful, hurtful, traumatizing, and the list goes on, and simply say, I don't need to save face anymore. I mean, there are other ways of saying this which will come out very strong. I don't have to save face anymore. It is what it is. I'm in a jam, I'm in a hole, I'm in a fix. And think how to step out of this in the most realistic. And the young man cleverly, he conjures a plan, a master plan. This is what I call this is a radical acceptance. If I go back home, people are going to say stuff, but man, I'm going to eat. Okay? When I go home, people are going to... Sometimes we get ourselves in different places which are not nice spots. But we've got to get ourselves out. How to get ourselves out? We've got to agree within ourselves. It is what it is. I've heard of people who have gone through divorces and they never allowed it to drown them. And I've had people who have gone through relationship problems and they never moved they never moved from that day on. And you know what I'm saying? I mean, there are people who have carried themselves with dignity and said, look, I can't make you like me, but for heaven's sake, I can't have people beating me and I'm beating myself. No. There are relationships that have survived as horrid and as terrible, the relationship that have survived even infidelity. People have found a way to get out of sticky situations by simply saying, well, simply, it's not a very good way of putting it, but by saying, I refuse to allow this thing to drown me. Whatever of my life is left, I am going to make the best out of it. And sometimes it's never as bad as it looks initially. And this young man just simply says, I will arise. It reminds you of those 4 lepers in the Bible who said, we stay here, we die. We go to the Aramean camp, they will kill us. But what are the probabilities? We stay here, it's a sure death. There's no food. You know the story? 2 Kings, I believe it is. So this guy simply said, let's go to the Aramean camp, chapter 7, if I'm not wrong. Let's go. They might spare us. They might. There is a single window of hope. There is a crack on the wall. Who knows? It just might work. And friends, it just might work. In any case, what do you have to lose? If you're in a hole, what will you lose to try to get out? If you attempt to get out, what will you lose? Yeah. What will we lose? You're already down. It's not like we've lost everything. You can't go below where you are. If people are not feeding this, the food which the swines ate, nobody will give him. How low can you go? The man simply says, I'm going to have a serious presentation, and I like it. He understands how parents work. If any child, and my children should not hear me saying this very loudly because they will manipulate me. And one is listening to me right across the room. Fathers, mothers, parents, this guy understood their psyche. I will arise and go to my father and I will say, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. Very clearly. So he could have gone and said, Father, if I had offended you, if I've offended you, that is not an apology. And that's why sometimes for me, I have a lot of problem with how people, conjure what they call apologies or when they're seeking for forgiveness. It's not an issue of if I've forgiven you. We better be certain that we have done, number one, we've done something wrong. Okay? If I've offended you, I never meant to. Does it matter if you meant or you didn't mean to? If you hit me with your hand accidentally, the pain is still the same. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not an issue of gauging intent. So is there an intentional meter? And does it mean that I will hurt less? Okay, let me use a very gross, and forgive me. If a person dies, on a road crash, for example, and the driver was drunk, does it matter that he was, intoxicated, that he was not in his... It doesn't matter the intent. Grief is still grief. Death is still death. Life is still lost. Okay? There's a time, and I think I can find it from my notes. I can't remember where I placed it. I was calling it the anatomy of an apology. Maybe I lost it. I'm not so sure if I have it, but I can just have a look at it. The anatomy of an apology. You see that, then you know that you're dealing with, I think I must have deleted it. Yes, I did. Do I have it? Yes, I have it here. And I said, number one, the person, the offending party must take responsibility. So this young man says, I have sinned against God, that's the Father, and I've also sinned against you. So say, for example, I hurt my wife. Then I come and I say, well, I've been thinking about what happened the other day, and I've repented to God. You know, so I remove out of the equation. No, that doesn't cut. That doesn't cut. Number two, acknowledges the feelings of the other person. I have not only sinned against you, I have caused you pain and anguish. I've made you to go through this unpleasant situations. Okay? Number three, commit to change. If not, they'll do it again. If somebody is careless and I bring you in very quickly, what I normally say, quick interventions. We like, because we don't like people, going through this. Somebody starts apologizing, then we say, it's okay. And it's a very hasty, quick intervention. Let them go through the process properly. And then put their feet very strongly on the fire. Hold their feet on the, that's my way of saying, let them feel the consequence. Then they commit to change. They say, look, I can't have you throwing your hand anyhow. I will stay away from you because really, you look like you don't really think when you say stuff, and it hurts people. And so I'm going to stay away and watch if you have changed. I may say it or not even say it, but I will observe. Commit to change. Let's finish because of time. So he says, I will arise, God my Father. I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Now, let me tell you something. Any child who tells you that, it doesn't matter how offended you are, and most of these children should not hear us saying this. And your child tells you, treat me like a servant. The first thing you say, no. My child is my child. There can never be, you're not a third rate, second rate. Make me like one of your hired servants. Can you imagine? It kind of reminds me when you when your parents borrow from you, it's so hard to go and even when you go back to get the money, you almost approach it apologetically. Like you remember that thing we had done last week or last month. I kind of need it, because you can't treat them on the same plate, on the same level with everybody else. Make me like one of your servants. So he arose and of course went to the father, and the father embraced him. Now I want to finish this by simply saying 3 things that we pick from this prodigal son, which are good. He understands timing. He understands it's time to be responsible. And he goes for whatever belongs to him. That's a number 2 thing. This is my time. He goes for it. He asks for it. He demands of it. Which is a good thing. And even when he fails, he falters, he messes up, he understands that he has a father who can grant him second chances. And he is genuinely apologetic. I think and I believe he was. So, over and above the father being sympathetic and compassionate, which is a good thing, over and above that he messed up and did all sorts of crazy things, there are a couple of things that we can pick from this youngster that are low-hanging fruits we can use for ourselves or on ourselves and in our lives and in our relationships that are going to be beneficial. My time is really up. It's almost midday, and I think we can take that and run with it. Thank you, guys, and God bless you.